This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
All right, Ricky, we're on.
All right. Cool.
Okay, so um, thank you for calling us. And you're currently
Yep.
on, you have a collect call from, and we're currently speaking with Ricky. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself, Ricky?
My name's Ricky Black. I'm in Sentinel State Prison, doing 36 to life.
And how did you end up in prison, Ricky?
It's a great question. The short answer is to that is that I took another man's life 23 years ago. Uh, I got involved with the wrong crowd at a young age, at 16, and that led me down the wrong path in life, where ultimately I used violence to solve my problems. I thought that was acceptable, and 23 years ago, I thought it was okay to take another man's life, and I wound up being convicted for that, and I wind up I was wind up sentenced to 36 to life and 26 to life, ran consecutive.
And right now in life, where you're at, are you the same person that you were when you entered the prison system 23 years ago?
Not even close. I'm not even close to being the same man. Uh, there's I no longer after being incarcerated for 23 years. A lot of things have changed, and some of the things that have changed is what I value today. And it, it's easier to say what I don't value, and what I don't value is violence and gangs because that's what got me in here, and it took me away from my own family. But also, it took away a young man's life from his own family, who was a young father and had a young daughter himself. He was 23 years old. His daughter was 3, and I made the choice of taking his life for something that I believed in 23 years ago. And today, I see how wrong my choices were, and I also see the impact and the magnitude of that decision and how it not only affected my life and affected my kid's life, but how it affected his family and affected his daughter. Because now she's 26 years old, and for the last 23 years, her father wasn't in her life. So just looking at who I am today, being able to see my crime through that lens of what I've taken from another family, absolutely not. I'm not the same guy. And I could tell you that I don't even recognize who I used to be compared to where I'm at today.
Ricky, let me ask you something, and I might be getting a little bit ahead here, but if you could go back in time and talk to a younger version of yourself, what would you, what kind of advice would you give yourself so you wouldn't go down this path, knowing what you know now?
Yeah, I've thought about this question a lot personally, and I do a lot of self-help groups in here with a lot of younger guys. Well, I'm also a peer mentor for younger inmates, and that's a question that I think about a lot. And one of the things that I figured out for myself is that staying in school at a young age and worrying about the things that's important at that time in my life, like graduating high school, that was at 16 years old, the most important thing that you have going on in your life is school. Uh, you hear it from your parents, you hear it from school teachers, you hear it from your principal. If you're on probation, you hear it from your probation officer. So the most important thing that I could have done was gave myself the time and space to graduate high school And then at least by the time I turned 18, I would have had 2 more years of growth, 2 more years of maturity, and maybe I would have had someone positive in my life, like a positive role model that could have helped me make a better decision. Because a lot of times at a young age, you just don't have the right people in your corner to help you make the right decision. But as you mature and you get older, you start figuring things out for yourself, and you're able to latch on to some positivity in your life. And maybe, just maybe, had I graduated and focused on school, that the decisions I made would have been a little bit different than what they are today.
Let me ask you, if you were to be granted parole today, do you have a support system?
I do. Uh, I got a great support network with former lifers who have been granted parole and have gotten out. They're all waiting for me as well. There's transitional housing that support long-term offenders who have been incarcerated for years, that help you transition back into society, where you live in a home with other men. You're taught the necessary skills uh, that you need once you get out, like simple things that most people already know. Submitting your job application online instead of walking in and filling out an application. Uh, Learning how to use a computer. They help you get your driver's license. They help you find employment. They help you get your birth certificate, your social security card. They buy you clothes. They set you up with food and housing. All of the things that a long-term offender needs once he gets out as a support network. But I also have family members like my daughters and their mothers who are also willing to support me once I get out with housing and any other things that I may need, like clothing, a cell phone, which is very important today. Everything's done on a cell phone. So there's a whole community, and even my parole agent and their facilities, they help facilitate our transition too, as well. So, yeah, so I would say yes, that I do have a big support system outside of here.
Yeah, that's great. That's really great. The the former lifers that are currently out on parole, what do they tell you as far as like coming home? Because I suppose they were incarcerated for decades before they were actually given the opportunity to come home. How do they deal with society in general? Because everything seems to be a lot more uh, fast. The pace is a lot faster out here. Let's say you go to Walmart and you're just surrounded by people. There's sensory overload is the word I'm looking for. How do they manage that type of stress?
Slowly. It's very overwhelming. All of my friends who have gotten out and went into Walmart or anywhere to go shopping are overwhelmed with the opportunities and the selections and the choices that they have to make, because it is a sensory overload, because you have such a sensory deprivation in prison that all the sights, sounds, and smells just overwhelm you because you're not used to them. So it's a gradual process in transitioning back into society, and it's really where the transitional housing that's set up for long-term offenders come into play, because it gives us a safe spot to retreat to. And then, so like a lot of us will have curfews. We're allowed to be out from 6 in the morning to say 9 or 10 at night. So just those few hours each day of getting out into the community and going to stores, going to the DMV, yes, it's challenging and yes, it's overwhelming, but a lot of us have the mindset that we're just grateful that we're out and that we have an opportunity to engage in these activities. But it is overwhelming because, it's a sensory overload at the time. And how people are, a lot of times that we hear and hear, a lot of people ain't real respectful. In they tend to crowd your space more so than you have in prison. So there's a lot going on out there, but just having that support team around you that's walking you through it. So we'll have friends that basically go out into the community with us, and it's almost like a CNI dog that's helping you, right? But this person has been out longer than you, and what they're doing is actually helping you deal with the stresses that you might come up against during the day.
And as of today, how many people, how many former lifers do you know that have actually uh, been able to gain their freedom?
And honestly, I've lost count. I've lost count on how many lifers I've seen granted parole in the last 3 years. It's got to be 50 plus lifers that I've personally seen go home, and it's a blessing to see them go. I got to tell you.
And what does this do to your psyche, seeing all these former lifers without parole or lifers come home? What does that do to you? Does it give you hope?
Yeah, it gives you hope. It gives you hope that you know someday it might be your turn to get out. That you could go home and be with your
You have 60 seconds remaining.
that you could go home and be a productive member of society. And for lifers, the 50 that I've seen that have gotten out,
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
not one of them has reoffended and come back to prison yet.
So all these programs that are taking place inside the prison, all these outside groups that are coming in, and all the help that one's getting once they parole are actually helping, right?
Very successful, very successful programming. The transitional housing that I'm talking about is it's the reason why lifers don't reoffend.
At one point in California, when you got sentenced to life, you had nothing to look forward to, right? Just bear with me, and he should be calling us back shortly, and the podcast will continue.
This is Globaltel Link. You have a prepaid call from
Ricky Black.
an inmate at the Centinela State Prison, Centinela, California. This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded. You have a prepaid call. You will not be charged for this call. To accept this call, say or dial 5 now. Thank you for using Globaltel Link.
Thank you for calling me back, Ricky.
Yes, sir.
So once you parole and you go to these halfway houses, how long are you
I guess.
obligated? How long are you
Go
obligated
ahead.
to stay in these halfway houses?
So the obligation is 6 months. You have to stay there 6 months and graduate from that program. However, you could stay there until you get off parole, and they help you with sustainable housing once you complete the program. So they just don't kick you out to the streets. They also set you up with affordable housing once it's time for you to go. And another thing that they also do is they help you save your money so it's put in a bank. And so while you're working, you're actually saving money in your bank account that you do not have to spend because your housing is for free. So as you can imagine that as somebody who's paying your own rent, just imagine if you can save your rent money each month in a bank for 6 months to a year, how much you can accumulate. And a lot of guys leave there 10, 15,000 in their bank account. So once they do leave, they can afford a place of their own, or any other housing that the program sets you up with. And a lot of lifers may even rent an apartment or a house and then split the rent. So it's pretty nice.
Yeah, that does really, I'm sure it gives a lot of people hope, hearing all these stories of what other like former lifers are doing.
Yeah, because I think for a lifer who's been down as long as me, one of the fears is how are you going to make it when you get out? Where are you going to live? How are you going to be successful? And a lot of these programs set you up for success. And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of prison advocates out there. And I believe the recidivism rate for lifers is less than 1%. So I know a lot of people in the public are concerned about lifers getting out and reoffending. But the truth be told, less than 1% of us recidivize and come back to prison because the transition process sets us up for success. And that's what we're seeing today.
And once you're grounded parole and you do get to walk out of those gates, how long do you have to be? How long do you have to remain on parole once you walk out?
Right now it's 1 year. You have to be on parole for 1 year and you have to meet all the requirements though. If you don't meet the requirements, then you will stay on parole longer than that. But right now in California, I think the average is about 15 months. But if you do everything right that your parole agent asks you to do, it's about a year.
That's interesting. I remember back in the days, it used to be 36 months, and it was like impossible to get off parole when it was that long.
I never made it off, my man. I've paroled before, and I've never made it off. The system was totally different, and it was all about money, how many people they can lock up, and however many bodies was in prison. That's how much the government would give them in money. So it paid to lock people up, where today it's not paying to house us because the cost that it's costing now. So we see what our governor's doing now is lowering the prison population because the cost is so high.
What would you say to somebody that has concerns about somebody like that's um in your shoes, that committed a murder, and they have doubts or concerns of you moving next door to them?
Stay concerned, honestly. I know just on what I see on the news, it's crazy. What I see happening at the shopping malls are crazy. But for lifers getting out, I would hope that those people that have concerns actually look at the numbers and see if it's a lifer that's reoffending, or is it someone who just got out after doing 2 years and is still young and involved in gangs or criminal activities? Because that's where the real danger is. Looking at my own life and where I was at, I still see the young guy that I was and the decisions I was making, because I hadn't changed my life yet. I was still believed in, and it was me against the world attitude. I was still affiliated. I still believed in making quick money, and I see a lot of guys coming back now because they still have that attitude.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Doing a couple years at a time. But a lot of lifers, because they've been down so long, they've matured and they've grown out of the bad behavior, and now they want to be a productive member, not only of their own community, but of their family as well. So concerns are real, but, I would like to tell those people that are concerned that look at the numbers, make sure that you're staying active in your own community and voting for the right bills that make sense, voting for bills that focus on rehabilitation and recovery, because it does work.
Great answer. My next question would be, why why do you think it would be a benefit for you to share your story to the public, or to kids or to adults or anybody that's going through any type of hardships, has addiction, or comes from a troubled background?
Well, one of the things in the lifer community and the recovery circle that I've been in, the only reason I've been able to change my own life is because I've seen other men do it themselves. And seeing them go down that path of change, it's only helped me get there even faster. So I kind of parallel that with, if you go to a trade school to learn a trade, say to be a plumber, you're learning how to be a plumber by another plumber, right? You're being trained in this school by people that have done it themselves. And so for me, if someone could see my story and see that I've changed my life, hopefully they can see what I've done, and there might be something in there that they could use to help them as well. Because we all learn from each other in life. You can't do it on your own. Change doesn't happen overnight. Recovery doesn't happen on your own or by yourself. You need somebody to help you, because there's times that things just don't make sense. And having somebody who has changed their life help you make the right decisions moving forward could only benefit you. And so for anyone that might be listening or thinking about changing their life, or maybe even helping someone in their own family that's in my position to change their life, just knowing that it is possible, that you can change if you're motivated to. And for me, that's really what it comes down to, is each individual has to be motivated to change their life so they could be a positive influence with their family and in their community.
Earlier on, you mentioned that you see individuals coming in and they do a few years at a time, they reoffend, they come back. Why do you think it is that they fall into that cycle of reoffending?
Poverty. Most guys in here come from poor backgrounds, and they just don't have the opportunities that other people have. So, for instance, if a young guy comes in and does 2 years, and he goes right back to the same community with no resources to help him, what is he going to do with $200 in his pocket? How is he going to help his girlfriend buy clothes or diapers or food for the baby, if he doesn't have a job, if he doesn't have a support team, if he doesn't have a transition home or a team to help him transition back into society, if he goes back to that poor community, he's surrounded by the same.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Making the same bad choices. So a lot of times you just come into prison and you learn how to be a better criminal, and then you get out and then you kind of reenact what you learned in here to make faster money. But if you have a support team that's helping you transition back into society, that can help you with housing, food, job, training, those things, you're a lot more able to be successful than opposed to somebody that's getting out and going right back to the same home in the same neighborhood. And it's all, you know, in my opinion, from what I see, it's all based on poverty, where you live, and the opportunities that you have.
Yeah, I think that would help definitely. So we are gonna be getting into your story, and it should be
Hmm.
coming along soon. We have recorded his journey from a child all the way to adulthood. It's gonna be coming along soon, and he's gonna be sharing that with us, and I'm very grateful, and I'm sure it'll help a lot of people out. Um, or as long as it helps one person, my job here is done. And I want to thank Ricky for taking the time out of his busy schedule, because he does run some groups in prison, right? That you run some groups, right, Ricky?
Absolutely, I do. I facilitate groups in here as well.
And can you share a little bit about those groups with us?
So the last group that I facilitated was confronting criminal thinking. And what confronting criminal thinking is about is understanding why you believe it's okay to commit a crime and where you learn that at. So confronting those core beliefs that you had, that this is okay to go steal from somebody else, or it's okay to go assault somebody else. Where did those beliefs come from, and why did you take them on and believe that that was okay? So what we do is we confront that thinking and figure out, where was it that you learned that behavior at, because it's all learned behavior. And then we start working through the steps of how that was reinforced in your life moving forward, and what experiences you had, or what triggered your beliefs. Because a lot of times what happens is we believe something, and then an event will happen
You have 60 seconds remaining.
that triggers our beliefs, that we believe that it's okay to assault somebody else or to steal somebody's car. So that's what criminal thinking does. Confronting criminal thinking, that is confronting that kind of thinking.
Good answer, Ricky. So we're gonna go ahead and switch over to our normal format, and I'm gonna be cutting this stream. But for our audience that does
Okay.
listen to we're gonna be hearing more from Ricky.
Okay.
All right, so I just cut it. If you want